Wicked Cool Java, Code Beats, Open Source Libraries and Project Ideas. Introduction. This book is about Java programming language, created by Sun Microsystems. The book is targeted toward Java developers at any level of expertise who are looking for interesting and useful APIs or for project ideas. Java has come a long way since it was first released. When I discovered Java in 1996, the version was 1.0, and only a small group of people even knew what it was. Java had no experienced developers, very few code libraries, and no enterprise servers. It was just an immature language with a big dreams. But looks were deceiving. The power of the JVM's platform independence was the key to Java's growth. Today Java is an ubiquitous, mature technology over 10 years old. The core API itself contains over 3,000 classes in a number of subject areas. Fortune 500 companies now build their entire corporate computing strategies around Java, and millions of websites are running servlets or client-side applets. I'm amazed at how often developers will look at the core API and think that it's all you can do with the language. Besides what is in the core, there is a great wealth of free open source libraries for Java. It is because of these libraries that Wicked Cool Java was born. I wanted to give you a taste of some of the interesting and useful things that Java can do. What I didn't want was to write another how to program in Java book. There are plenty of good books for getting people started in writing Java code. Instead, what I wanted was a book just for the joy of discovering interesting things to do in Java without reinventing the wheel. This book is intended for the programmer who has knowledge of Java from a basic to an intermediate level and is looking for ways to enhance his or her code. The book has a lot of sample code and hello world programs for various APIs. Some are introductory level examples and others are more advanced. Occasionally there are code tips and sometimes there are ideas for new projects that could become successful open source projects if someone would only write them. If you implement any of these project ideas, I strongly encourage you to go to the book's website and work with other readers to avoid duplicating effort. One of the greatest things we can do as Java developers or as developers is to work together and to share the fruits of our efforts with others. Organization of the book. This book is organized into 8 chapters, each covering a particular area of Java. The following gives a short outline of each chapter. Chapter 1. In the first chapter, we discuss some of the core API features, some that are older but less well known, and some that are new to Java 5. We discuss the new for loop, enums, generics, anonymous classes, and assertions. Chapter 2. Next we discuss string processing techniques. We start with regular expressions and we also discuss random text, arrays, binary strings, and message formatting. Regex is a very powerful tool for searching, splitting, and substituting text. It has been around since Java 1.4, and many new programmers are still not familiar with it. Regular expressions are a good starting point for parsing more complex documents. Chapter 3. In this chapter we process XML and HTML documents and other types of structured text. We introduce a parser generator and show some sample code for working with it. Chapter 4. Chapter 4 explores the semantic web, a next generation web where the links are between concepts rather than documents containing text. We introduce some APIs for working with RDF and RSS. Chapter 5. This chapter explores scientific and mathematical applications in Java. We link to a number of open source projects for working with different aspects of science and mathematics. Chapter 6. Here we talk about APIs for making it easier to develop graphical applications or to add new features. Chapter 7. This chapter deals with sound and music APIs with a section on advanced thread synchronization. Chapter 8. The final chapter of this book looks at miscellaneous open source projects and discusses ideas for creating your own projects and integrating code from earlier sections. The website. Java can be a lot of fun, and we certainly look at some cool projects in this book. But the book also introduces you to some useful tools and techniques that you can use with your own projects. To get the most out of Java, you will need to work with open source projects at some point. This book has a companion website at wickedcooljava.com that has links to projects mentioned in the text, errata, and code samples. The website has a forum for discussing the book with other readers and for organizing new projects. I hope that this will encourage you to look at more than just the Java core APIs and to continue the learning process. Java language and core API. This book assumes that you've had some exposure to Java and are familiar with the basics of Java language and its core application programming interface API. With the release of Java 5, also known as Java 1.5 or Tiger, there were some major new features added to the language and core API. In this chapter, we will give examples of some of the new features and will as some other useful classes and methods that are often used are unknown to Java developers. The Java API is huge, and with over 3000 classes it can be taught to keep track of everything. There are classes available in the core packages that even experienced Java developers might overlook, simply because they have never seen them before or needed to work with them. Many programmers think of Java as just another language and syntax to learn, but the most effective Java programmers must think in terms of object hierarchies, behaviors and relationships, rather than function calls and procedures as in procedural languages. In introductory seminars, I always emphasize the three-part harmony of Java. The object-oriented language. Working effectively in Java means understanding object-oriented programming (OOP). not just the syntax of Java. If your past experience has been in procedural languages such as C or Pascal, it's important to acclimate yourself to OOP before writing Java code. For this book, I make the assumption that you have already worked with Java to some extent. If you are unfamiliar with OOP, a good introduction can be found at java.sun.com/docs/books/tutorials/java/concepts. In this chapter, we'll talk about some recent changes to the syntax that are useful to know. I would suggest a book called Java for Kids and Parents. The Java Virtual Machine JVM. The Java Virtual Machine was the most groundbreaking aspect of Java when it was released. Instead of recompiling or modifying source code for each target platform, as in other languages, you need to compile the source code only once. The executable code or bytecode can then run on any target system that has the JVM installed. Bytecodes work like a cross-platform machine language. Languages other than Java can also be compiled into JVM bytecodes, and we will look at that possibility in a later chapter. The core APIs. The sheer size of Java core libraries is sometimes overwhelming for developers. The core libraries include packages for networking, graphics, sound, multi-threading, I/O security, cryptography, databases, XML, and many others. In later chapters, we'll explore advanced features of some of the core APIs. We'll also look at open source Java projects that provide useful functionality beyond what is available in the core. For this chapter, we'll work with just a few core classes and some new syntax from Java 5. There is no for in Java using the for loop enhancements. Java 5 Plus. In some programming languages, it's very easy to iterate through a list or an array, automatically repeating through a loop for each item in the list and assigning the item to a local variable. I once started to tell a colleague how I thought the for loop in Java was broken because it didn't have a for each. What actually came out of my mouth was, there is no for in Java. My friend was also an experienced Java developer, and he responded with, "Are you crazy? Of course there is a for in Java." For a long time after that, he continued to tease me, periodically reminding me that there was a for in Java, just in case I had forgotten. But I have some good news for him and for all Java developers. There is now a real for in Java. Consider the case where you would like to find the sum of all of the values in a collection, such as java.util array list of integer objects. You've probably written code like the following.